The rain had picked up by the time I pulled up outside Melissa's building. Chicago in December didn't play fair, just ice-pick raindrops hammering the windshield and the city's usual mix of honking horns and strangers hurrying under umbrellas. I'd planned this surprise for once. Early from work, the passenger seat wiped down, heater humming. I even brought her favorite chai from that overpriced spot by the river. I parked just around the corner, watching the entrance with a quiet, excited tension I hadn't felt in weeks. Maybe this would soften the distance that had crept in between us. Maybe tonight we'd talk, laugh, be us again. Then I saw her. Melissa, my wife, my partner of 9 years. She stepped out of the revolving glass door in that sleek black trench coat I bought her last Christmas. Her hair was pulled back in that clean, no-nonsense bun she only wore when she had something to prove. I smiled, reached for the coffee, and that's when it happened. Instead of scanning the sidewalk or pulling out her phone, she looked straight ahead and walked right past my car. Not 2 feet away, didn't even glance at me. And then, she got into another car. Not an Uber, not a rideshare, not some coworker's junker. A sleek black BMW with dark tinted windows. I only saw his face for a moment. Calvin, her boss. He leaned over, said something to her. She laughed. She laughed. My fingers clenched around the paper coffee cup until the lid popped clean off and the chai spilled into my lap. I didn't even curse. I just started the engine. They pulled out first. I followed. Close enough to see them, far enough not to be noticed. My mind was spinning, screaming. Maybe it was innocent. Maybe there was an explanation. But when I saw her reach over and touch his arm at the red light, something inside me snapped. I gunned it. 2 blocks later, I cut in front of them. Hard. Tires screeched, horns blared. I stepped out into the rain like I didn't feel a thing. Calvin was already out of the car, arms spread like he was ready to defend himself. Are you serious, David? Melissa's voice came from behind him, low, tight. I stared at her, every muscle in my body vibrating. Get in the car. She didn't move. I pointed. Now. People on the sidewalk had stopped. One guy took out his phone. The rain kept falling, mixing with the heat of my breath. Calvin tried stepping in. Look, man, this isn't. You don't speak. I cut him off. You don't look at her, and you don't speak. Melissa, get in the car. That's when she finally looked at me. But not the way I hoped. Not ashamed. Not afraid. Just blank. Like I was an item on her to-do list. She brushed past Calvin, opened the passenger door, and slid into my car without a word. I stood there for a second longer, breathing hard in the cold. Then I got back behind the wheel. We didn't speak. She stared out the window. I gripped the steering wheel like it was the only thing keeping me anchored to reality. For the next few blocks, the only sound was the rain, and the fact that my world had just cracked open. The windshield wipers ticked back and forth like a slow, steady metronome as we rolled through the wet streets. Melissa hadn't said a word since we left the scene. Not one. She was scrolling through her phone, her thumb moving like she was just bored. Like we hadn't just had a confrontation in the middle of downtown with her boss. Like my whole chest hadn't caved in 5 minutes ago. You good? I asked, my voice low, almost mechanical. No answer. Just more scrolling. I glanced over. Her face was lit up by the blue glow of the screen, eyebrows raised slightly, focused, but not stressed. Not sad. Not guilty. Just gone. I could hear the click of her nails against the glass. Anything you want to say? I asked again, not angrily, just trying. She didn't even look up. I'm reading something. I let out a quiet breath and turned my eyes back to the road. The red light reflected across the dashboard like warning signs written in blood. One after another, the streetlights passed over us, flashes of cold white, slicing the silence. You didn't even look at me, I murmured, almost to myself. What? She asked finally. Back there. I was parked right in front of your building, Mel. You walked right past me like I wasn't even there. I didn't see you. You looked at the car. She didn't reply. I tightened my grip on the wheel. And Calvin, you just got in his car like it was any other night. It was just another night, she said. That one hit me harder than I expected. I turned sharply into our neighborhood, tires splashing through puddles as we passed quiet rows of houses. Our street, Maple Drive, still had its holiday lights up, even though Christmas had come and gone. Half of them were flickering, broken. The other half blinked mindlessly into the dark. We pulled into the driveway. I parked. We sat there for a second, not moving, just breathing the same stale air, each of us in our own little world. I didn't do anything wrong, she said, I still on the phone. Then why did you look so guilty? She finally turned to face me, slowly, like it was a chore. Her eyes met mine. Flat. Empty. Are we really doing this right now? I didn't answer. I was afraid if I said anything else, it would come out like a scream. She opened the door and stepped out into the drizzle without waiting for me. I stayed in the car a few seconds longer, gripping the steering wheel like it owed me something. Then I climbed out and followed her inside. The house was quiet. Warm. Too warm. Like the heat had been left on just high enough to make it uncomfortable. She went straight to the kitchen, poured herself a glass of water, and walked past me like I wasn't even there. I watched her set the glass down on the nightstand beside her side of the bed. Then she disappeared into the bathroom. I stood in the hallway, listening to the soft splash of water, the click of the light switch, the muted creak of the faucet turning off. When she came out, she didn't meet my eyes. She just brushed past me again, climbed into bed, and pulled the covers over her shoulder. Lights off. Door half closed. I changed in the dark. Sat on the edge of the mattress for a while, staring at the floor. There were so many things I wanted to say, questions I needed to ask, things I needed her to admit. But the silence between us had grown teeth. Every time I thought about breaking it, something bitter rose in my throat. So I laid down next to her. Same bed, same sheets. But the space between us might as well have been an ocean. I turned my back. So did she. And in that space between two bodies sharing the same bed, I realized it wasn't the silence that was killing me. It was the feeling that maybe this silence was starting to feel normal for her. The next morning smelled like toast and betrayal. I was already in the kitchen by the time Melissa walked in, hair still damp from the shower, phone in hand. She didn't even look surprised to see me. Just floated past me like she was avoiding furniture. I slid 2 plates onto the table. Eggs, toast, nothing fancy. Morning, I said. Morning, she replied flatly, still scrolling. We sat. I watched her spread jam on toast with mechanical precision, like this was just another Tuesday. Like last night hadn't even happened. I stirred my coffee, watching the swirl of cream settle. I couldn't sleep, I said. You? She shrugged. A little. I nodded. Bit my tongue. Tried to chew. Swallowed. Then I set my fork down and said it. I want to talk about yesterday. She didn't look up. What about it? You know what about? The car. The silence. Calvin. Melissa finally glanced at me, the tiniest flicker of annoyance crossing her face. David, you made a scene. I didn't ask for that. No, I said, trying to stay calm. But you didn't stop it either. You just let me stand there, soaking wet, while you climbed out of his car and into mine like it was some awkward carpool arrangement. Her lips parted like she was about to argue. Then she closed them again. I leaned forward. Tell me the truth. Is there something going on between you and Calvin? She stared at me, blinking slowly. Seriously? Yes. Melissa scoffed and sat back. He's my boss. That's not an answer. She looked away. Melissa, I said, voice firmer now. Don't play neutral with me. I watched you touch his arm like you've done it before. I watched you laugh in that car like I wasn't even a thought in your head. If you're going to lie, at least make it a good one. I'm not lying, she snapped a little too quickly. Then tell me what's going on. Her jaw tightened. You're overreacting. That's not a denial. Her voice rose slightly. You always do this. Get suspicious the second you're not in control. I blinked. Control? This isn't about control, Mel. This is about trust. And last night was nothing. She shouted suddenly, then caught herself, dropping her tone. It was just a ride. A ride you didn't mention. A ride you got without even noticing your husband sitting outside your building. I didn't know you were there, she said, standing now, hands clenched. And I don't have to check in with you every second of the day. I'm not asking for a tracker, I said, getting up too. I'm asking for honesty. I'm asking if the man you work under every day, who picks you up in the middle of a rainstorm, is more than just a professional connection. She went quiet. That silence answered everything. I nodded slowly, backing off. Right. She crossed her arms, defensive now. Don't twist this. I'm not twisting anything. I'm reacting to what's right in front of me. Nothing happened, she insisted. Not that night. Not ever. But something's been happening, I said. Hasn't it? Her face hardened. I'm done with this. And just like that, she turned on her heel and walked out of the kitchen. I stood there alone, plate half finished, eggs gone cold. This wasn't the beginning of a problem. This was the middle, and I'd missed the start completely. It was around 2:15 in the afternoon when I finally sat in the car and pulled up the dashcam footage. I'd been pacing the house since breakfast, cycling through every word Melissa had said and every one she'd dodged. I wasn't hunting for drama. I just wanted truth. Something concrete. The screen on my dash was small, grainy, but the timestamp didn't lie. 5:47 p.m. Rain tapping like static. There she was, Melissa, emerging from her building in that black trench coat, her heels tapping fast across the sidewalk. She wasn't rushing. She wasn't shielding herself from the rain. She was walking like someone who knew exactly where she was going. Then, Calvin's BMW rolled up. And without hesitation, without even looking around, Melissa pulled open the passenger side and climbed in. No pause. No glance. No caution. What hit me hardest wasn't the car. It was her face. She smiled as she got in. Not a polite smile. Not a thank you for the lift smile. It was soft. Familiar. Like the kind she used to give me. And then, in that blurry little rectangle of video, she reached out and touched his arm. Twice. I closed the laptop. Sat in the car for a long time. Rain still spattering against the roof. I didn't feel rage. Not even heartbreak. Just clarity. I opened my phone and called Rachel. Rachel was our mutual friend, someone Melissa used to vent to, especially when work drama came up. She also happened to work in corporate HR at the same company. She picked up on the second ring. David, I need 10 minutes of your time, I said. I heard her chair squeak. Is this about Melissa? It's about Calvin. That got her attention fast. 10 minutes later, I was in her office. I showed her the footage, silent, steady, undeniable. Rachel watched without blinking. When it ended, she leaned back slowly and crossed her arms. Well, she said, that explains a lot. Explain what? I've seen rumors float through the HR portal for months, she said. Anonymous complaints. Nothing formal. Nothing you could pin to a name. But Calvin's been too friendly. Especially with female hires. Melissa's name came up twice. Unverified. But still, I stared at her. And no one did anything. She raised a brow. It's a recruitment firm, David. These people sell image for a living. You think they're gonna blow the whistle on their golden boy without hard evidence? I nodded at the laptop. That enough for you? She gave a tight smile. More than. Within an hour, we were drafting the complaint. Formal language, citations of company policy, time-stamped images from the footage, and a summary of the clear conflict of interest between a supervisor and his direct report. Rachel didn't pull punches. Let's see how clean they want to keep things when this lands on the director's desk, she said, signing the document. And as I watched her slide the form into the inter-office envelope, something clicked into place in me. No more wondering. No more waiting for Melissa to tell me the truth on her terms. I wasn't just her husband anymore. I was a witness. And I was done staying quiet. 3 days passed before I got the email. Subject line, internal ethics review outcome, no violation found. I sat at my desk in the living room, blinking at the screen like maybe if I read it a second time, the words would rearrange themselves. Based on the current scope of evidence provided, we have found no breach of company policy or code of conduct. This matter is considered closed. No breach. No violation. No further action. I leaned back in the chair, staring out the window. The clouds were low and heavy that day, same as my chest. Melissa hadn't mentioned a word. She'd been quieter than usual, polite even, like we were two co-workers sharing a break room. She folded her laundry, answered emails, and slept on her side of the bed like nothing had ever happened. But this told me she knew. And someone in that company had chosen silence over accountability. Rachel called 30 minutes later. I saw the notice, she said. It didn't come through my channel. I had to find it buried in the admin logs. Meaning they bypassed the usual procedure. Fast-tracked it through upper management. Someone very high up shut it down. I clenched my jaw. And Calvin's still in his chair, smiling for headshots. Rachel hesitated. Look, you stirred the pot. That's something. But this company doesn't respond to paper cuts. They wait for blood. I thanked her. Hung up. And that was when the first message came in. Unknown number. You got your answer. Now let it go. I stared at the screen for a few seconds, thumb hovering. Then another buzz. Unknown number. It'd be smart not to start a fire you can't put out. I swallowed. Tight. The messages weren't violent. Not outright. Just cold. Sharp. Precise. Like someone reminding me I was being watched. I took a screenshot and texted Rachel. She replied instantly, "Do not respond. Document everything. You need a trail." At first, I wasn't sure whether to laugh or feel threatened. I wasn't some whistleblower with access to company secrets. I was a husband with a camcorder. What could they possibly want from me? But the longer I sat there, the more I felt it. This wasn't just about Calvin or Melissa. It was about a system, one that would rather intimidate a man into silence than confront the rot in its foundation. And if they thought a few anonymous texts were going to scare me off, they didn't know me at all. Later that night, Melissa walked in from the hallway, phone in hand, and saw me staring at mine. She raised an eyebrow. "Everything okay?" I looked right at her. "Yeah," I said evenly. "Just a message from someone who doesn't like the truth." She froze for half a second. Not long, but just enough. Then she looked away, walked to the kitchen, and opened the fridge like she hadn't heard a thing. She was pretending this wasn't happening. But I'd seen enough. This wasn't over. Not by a long shot. The explosion didn't come right away. It simmered. For days, Melissa moved around the house like a ghost, quiet, careful, distant. She cooked her own dinners, folded her own laundry, even sat on the far end of the couch like we were two polite strangers riding out a long layover. But I knew something was brewing. You could feel it in the pauses, in the looks she didn't give me, in the silence that was no longer sad, but strategic. The blow-up came the following Thursday night. I was standing at the kitchen counter, stirring sugar into my coffee when she came in from the hallway. No warning, no build-up. Just a voice, sharp and furious, slicing through the quiet. "You couldn't just leave it alone, could you?" I turned slowly. "Excuse me." Her arms were already crossed, eyes burning. "The complaint. The footage. Rachel, you went behind my back. You dragged my name into HR and turned it into gossip." I set my spoon down. It wasn't gossip. It was truth. "Oh, please," she scoffed. "You think people care about truth in an office like mine? All you did was humiliate me. You think that helps?" "Melissa," I said calmly, "you walked into another man's car. Your boss's car. After hours. Repeatedly. I watched it with my own eyes. I didn't humiliate you. You did that all by yourself." She stepped closer, voice rising. "You want to ruin me because you feel insecure? Because you saw something you didn't understand? You know what this looks like now? Like I'm sleeping my way up. That's what you did. I didn't make you do anything. You made it public." "No," I said, my voice like a wall now. "I made it documented. You made it public when you got in his car like no one would notice." She was breathing fast now, pacing. "You don't get it. Calvin believed in me. He put me on the big accounts. He vouched for me in front of senior management. I've been working for that for years." I nodded slowly. "Now tell me, did he vouch for you before or after those late-night drives?" Her face twisted. "You're disgusting." "No," I said quietly. "I'm done being used. You want to climb the ladder? Do it. But don't use my name as your rug." She stared at me. Hurt now, not angry. Or maybe both. "So what? You're the moral compass now?" "No," I said. "I'm just done playing the supportive husband in a marriage where loyalty doesn't go both ways." She didn't reply, just stood there. Then, without another word, she turned on her heel, grabbed her keys off the hook, and stormed out the front door. The slam echoed through the hallway. I stood alone for a moment, letting the silence settle like dust. Then I walked to the desk in the corner of the living room and opened my laptop. I wasn't just going to sit and wait for the next attack. If the company wanted to protect Calvin, I needed to understand why. I typed, "Calvin Brooks plus ethical complaints plus Chicago executive misconduct," then I kept digging. Old press releases, internal restructuring memos, archived company directories, a few obscure blog posts from ex-employees. It was all surface fluff until I found a forum post on a professional networking board dated 2 years back. Username hidden, but the story wasn't. "Don't work under CB unless you want to be part of his favorites list, especially if you're female. His mentorship has a price." I leaned in. Another comment underneath. "I left without filing a report. He knows how to bury it before it floats. Don't expect HR to save you." I bookmarked the thread, then kept going. Calvin's name showed up in a conference scandal 3 years ago, some anonymous complaint at a partner firm. It was handled internally. No paper trail. So this wasn't his first time. I sat back in the chair, the cursor blinking. Melissa wasn't just protected by Calvin. She was embedded in a system that looked the other way, and I had just become a threat to both of them. But I wasn't backing down. It was almost midnight when I found it, buried halfway down a press release on the company's internal events page. Annual Summit Gala, a celebration of innovation and impact. The date? 1 week from today. The location? The Lakeshore Grand Ballroom. Formal attire. Press invited. CEO attending. Multiple Fortune 500 execs on the guest list. And headlining the event? Keynote delivered by senior partner Calvin Brooks. I stared at the glowing screen, fingers frozen above the keyboard. I read the line again, slower this time. They weren't just ignoring what happened. They were elevating him. Melissa's department was hosting, which meant she wasn't just working under Calvin. She was helping polish the very stage he'd be standing on. That's when the unease really started to crawl in. Because for a second, just a second, I thought maybe I'd overestimated all of this. Maybe my anger had gotten ahead of me. Maybe things weren't as twisted as I feared. But this was a billboard-sized reminder. They didn't care. They didn't care about the footage. They didn't care about the complaint. They didn't care about the women before Melissa. This company didn't just protect Calvin. It needed him. I clicked through the event registration site. A private guest list portal showed rows of confirmed attendees, investors, tech CEOs, business journalists, all lined up to sip champagne under chandeliers and clap for a man they didn't know half as well as they thought. I scrolled to the bottom of the page. There it was, event produced by Internal Comms and Talent Advancement Division. That was Melissa's team. Talent Advancement. That irony made me want to put a hole in the drywall. I shut the laptop. Just sat there a second, running a hand down my face. I'd filed a report. I'd shown video. I'd laid it all out. And in response, they gave Calvin a microphone and a room full of cameras. My phone buzzed. It was Rachel. Rachel saw the event post. You okay? Me. Define okay. Rachel. I had a feeling they'd do this. Everyone up top's trying to spin it into momentum. Turn his controversy into visibility. Classic PR judo. Me. So they bury the truth, dress it in a tux, and serve it with wine. Rachel. Pretty much. I stared at her last message. My stomach burned. The company had drawn a line, one they weren't planning to cross. And Melissa? She was still standing on their side of it. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept picturing the ballroom, those wide gold-trimmed doors, the polite laughter, the cameras flashing. Calvin standing there in a crisp black suit, speech in hand, talking about leadership and vision while the people he'd stepped over sat quietly and smiled. And somewhere near him, Melissa, wearing a dress I probably helped pay for. I turned over in bed and stared into the dark. They could silence complaints. They could scrub reputations. But they couldn't erase what I'd seen. And I wasn't going to stay quiet anymore. The ballroom looked like something out of a luxury magazine. Gold chandeliers, white linens, waiters in black gloves gliding across the floor like shadows. Everyone smelled like money and wore smiles too perfect to be real. Cameras lined the walls, press badges flashed, and everywhere you turned, someone was shaking hands like the future depended on it. Melissa stood beside me, dressed in emerald green. Elegant, polished, unreadable. You clean up well, she said quietly, eyes forward. I'm good at pretending, I replied, just as soft. She didn't respond. I offered her my arm anyway. She took it. For show. We moved through the crowd like we belonged, like we were just another polished couple celebrating progress and innovation. No one knew what had been boiling beneath the surface. And tonight, I wasn't going to show it. Not yet. Not until it mattered. Calvin was working the room already, laughing that high, practiced laugh, shaking hands with donors, reporters, junior execs eager to orbit his spotlight. He wore a navy tux and a confidence you couldn't fake, not unless you'd spent your whole life convincing people you were untouchable. I watched from across the room, sipping slowly from a glass of Cabernet. He didn't see me. Not at first. He was too busy posing with the CEO for a photo. Two men clinking glasses in front of a branded backdrop, shaping tomorrow. That made me want to laugh. Rachel had sent me the updated press list that morning. Half the outlets were live streaming. Local channels, business blogs. Even one national tech review site was present, probably looking for a good headline. They'd get one. I turned to Melissa. I'm going to get some air, I said. She gave a distracted nod, her eyes on a group of executives laughing near the dessert table. I stepped away, weaving past clusters of champagne and small talk until I found myself near the back of the room, closer to Calvin now. He was holding court near the press circle, speaking into a microphone, answering a reporter's question about corporate responsibility with that perfect politician's grin. And that's when he finally saw me. His smile flickered. I held his gaze and raised my glass slightly. He blinked, then turned back to the cameras, as if he could erase me by looking the other way. I started walking, each step deliberate, each breath steady. By the time I reached him, 2 cameramen were still filming. I stepped in beside him, smiled politely to the reporters, then turned to Calvin and said in a low, clear voice, "Do you mentor every subordinate in your car? Or just the ones you think won't speak up?" He froze. Every muscle in his body went tight. The nearby reporters caught the line, their heads turning in unison like they weren't sure they'd heard correctly. Calvin opened his mouth. Nothing came out. So I did it. With the kind of calm you only get when you've already lost everything worth protecting. I lifted my glass and poured the wine straight over his head. The deep red splashed across his hair, his collar, soaked into that $1,000 tux. Gasps echoed. Cameras flashed. Someone dropped a tray. And Calvin just stood there, stunned, dripping Cabernet and corporate ego in the middle of the ballroom. I stepped back. Now you're marked like the women you forget. Then I walked away. Not fast. Not nervous. Just steady. Behind me, chaos erupted. PR staff rushed in. Someone called security. Melissa's voice called my name from across the room, tight with panic. But I didn't stop. I made it to the front entrance before the first reporter caught up with me. "Sir, are you?" I turned to her, still calm. "You'll want to ask Calvin Brooks why HR buries misconduct complaints and why the same man keeps appearing in them." She blinked, stunned, then scribbled fast. And I stepped out into the cold Chicago air, the ballroom doors swinging shut behind me like the final scene of a play. I didn't even make it to the valet stand before the glass doors slammed open behind me. "Hey." The voice was sharp, wet, and furious. I turned just in time to see Calvin coming at me, suit soaked, eyes wild. His bow tie hung crooked, his collar stained deep red with wine. Cameras followed, reporters scrambling behind him like vultures sensing fresh blood. "You think this is some kind of game?" he barked, closing the space between us fast. I didn't move, didn't flinch. "You had your moment," I said evenly. "Now back off before you make it worse." But he didn't. Calvin shoved me. Hard. I stumbled back a step, catching myself. Security was already shouting, but they didn't get there fast enough. He lunged again, this time with a fist. It caught the edge of my cheek. A flash of heat exploded in my jaw. I staggered back, vision jolting sideways. Someone screamed. Flashbulbs popped like fireworks. I steadied myself just in time to see him raising his arm again. But this time I swung first. Not clean, not technical, just instinct. My fist hit his shoulder and threw him off balance. He slipped on the wet marble just past the entrance and crashed hard against one of the decorative pillars. Reporters shouted. Security stormed in. They grabbed him first, 2 guys in suits with earpieces pulling him back, shouting over each other. Calvin thrashed like a cornered animal, spitting red-faced curses at anyone who got too close. "Get your hands off me. I built this place." I stood there, chest heaving, lip bleeding, watching the man unravel. Melissa burst through the doors a second later. Her heels clicked across the pavement, green dress clinging to her legs in the wind. Her eyes locked onto me, then darted to Calvin. "Oh my God, what did you do?" "He hit me first," I said. Plenty of people saw it. She didn't reply, because there was no defense left. The moment had swallowed him whole. By morning, the footage was everywhere. Someone had caught the whole scene on their phone. Calvin lunging, the punch, the stumble, the screams. It spread faster than anyone could spin it. Trending tags, zoomed-in screenshots, a 10-second clip looping on every social feed. By 10:17 a.m., the company issued a public statement. Effective immediately, Calvin Brooks has been suspended pending a formal internal investigation. We do not condone acts of violence or behavior unbecoming of our leadership. But that was just the start. Behind the scenes, departments started scrambling. Sponsors pulled out of the event retroactively. HR opened a full audit. Internal whispers turned to written statements. And suddenly, Rachel texted me 3 words. "They're pulling Melissa." I stared at the screen. And not 2 minutes later, Melissa walked through the front door of our house. keys still in hand, her expression blank. She stood in the foyer, back straight, face pale. "They fired me," she said, voice small. I nodded. She didn't cry. She didn't scream. She just set her purse down on the bench like it was any other day, walked to the kitchen, and sat down at the table. I followed, but didn't say anything. She sat with both hands folded in front of her, eyes staring at nothing. "They said it was restructuring," she said. "That my name's too connected to the incident." I didn't answer. She glanced up at me, face unreadable. "You wanted this, didn't you?" I leaned against the counter. "I didn't want you fired. I wanted you honest." She gave a bitter laugh. "Well, you got both." And with that, she stood and left the room. I heard the bedroom door close softly behind her. No slamming this time. Just an end. It was just afternoon when I heard the knock. Not the kind that demanded. The kind that hoped. I opened the front door, and there she stood, Melissa. Same woman. Different weight in her eyes. She wore a loose sweater, no makeup, hair pulled back like she hadn't bothered to fight with the mirror this morning. She looked tired. Worn. Like the last 24 hours had peeled something off her she couldn't get back. "Can I come in?" she asked. I stepped aside. She walked in slowly, each step careful like the floor might give way. I stayed by the door. She didn't go far. Just stood in the center of the room, turning to face me. "I didn't know it would go this far," she said quietly. I waited. I didn't know they'd fire me. Or Calvin would. Her voice cracked. She swallowed. "I thought I could balance it. Be close enough to rise, without letting it cost us." She looked up. "I wasn't trying to betray you. I was just so tired of being passed over. I thought if I kept saying yes, someone would finally say yes to me." I leaned my shoulder against the wall. "And what exactly were you saying yes to?" She winced, but didn't back away. The attention, the access, the illusion that it meant something. Silence passed between us, heavy as wet cement. "I lost everything," she whispered. "And I know I don't have a right to ask for anything else, but I want to ask anyway." She stepped closer, slowly. "I want to know if there's anything left between us. If you can forgive me. If I can. If we can try." Her voice was fragile. And for a split second, the old part of me, the one that remembered movie nights and road trips and how she used to smile when she saw me in the crowd, wanted to reach for her. But that version of us was gone. And I wasn't here to rescue what she had spent months unraveling. I looked her straight in the eyes. "Melissa," I said calmly, "you weren't blinded by ambition. You were chasing something you didn't even understand." She blinked. I stepped forward, just enough so she could hear every word, feel every syllable. "Then maybe it's time you learn what real ambition costs." She didn't cry. She just nodded once, slowly, and then walked out of the house. No door slam. No apology that could fix it. Just her footsteps, fading. And the truth she finally had to carry on her own. It's been 6 weeks since I signed the papers. No drama. No drawn-out fights. Just 2 signatures, a silent nod from across a cold table, and the clean, painful finality of a courthouse stamp. I moved into a smaller apartment on the north side. Nothing fancy. Just enough space for the essentials. The walls are quieter now, and somehow that's easier. Peaceful even. Most mornings I walk to the corner diner, grab coffee, and read through headlines on my phone. The gala incident made its rounds for a while. Calvin's name lit up tech blogs and ethics panels like a caution light. Then it fizzled, replaced by some newer scandal in a newer city. But every once in a while, I still hear things. Like last Thursday, when Rachel and I met for lunch. She slid into the booth across from me and didn't even bother with a hello. She applied for an internal transfer, she said. I didn't ask who she meant. She's been sending emails to other departments. No one's biting. Word traveled fast after the gala. I just nodded. Rachel sipped her iced tea and went on. Calvin's ghosted her completely. HR can't reach him. Rumor is he's halfway through negotiating a soft exit package. Board wants it all buried. And Melissa? I asked. She hesitated. Still unemployed. No offers. One of the recruiters told me off record that her name rings alarm bells now. People see her resume and remember the video. I didn't say anything. I didn't gloat. I just sat there, letting the weight of it settle. Because that's the thing with ambition. It can drive you forward, sure. But if it's pointed in the wrong direction, it doesn't take long before it drives you off a cliff. And Melissa? She was standing in the dust of the wreckage. I wish I could say I hated her. That would have been easier. But what I really felt was distance. The kind that doesn't come from miles, but from watching someone you used to love turn into someone you couldn't follow. Rachel stood to leave. You did the right thing, you know. I didn't do it for justice, I said quietly. She gave me a small smile. Doesn't matter. It still landed. After she left, I sat for a while in that booth, just staring out the window. A bus passed by with a new ad on the side. Integrity drives everything. And for the first time in months, I smiled. Because now I understood something Melissa never did. Ambition's not about how high you climb. It's about what you refuse to step on to get there. That was the end of my story. Melissa said she only wanted to rise, that she never meant to hurt anyone. But when she chose silence over truth and loyalty over integrity, everything unraveled. I still wonder, did she deserve another chance? Or did walking away seal her fate? Tell me in the comments. Did Melissa make a mistake she could have come back from? Or was it already too late? If stories like this hit home, make sure to like and subscribe. I've got more truths to tell.